Welcome back to Curious Now from the Center for Medical Simulation. I'm Jenny Rudolph. I'm back this week with Melanie Barlow and BJ So to talk with us about what was it like to do the workout of the week on the feedback dilemma. Welcome back, Mel.
Hey, Jenny, it's great to be back. I'm Mel Barlow. I'm the academic lead for the specialized learning environments and simulation at the Australian Catholic University in Australia.
Thanks, Mel. And BJ, hello.
Hey, it's great to be back. I'm an anesthetist based in Wollongong in Sydney, and I'm also the sim lead for my anesthetic department.
Great. And another voice you may hear off and on in the show is our producer.
Hello again, everyone.
This week's workout of the week was to recognize the squirmy, uncomfortable feelings that many of us have when we have a feedback conversation that we have to carry out. Thinking about a feedback conversation you have to have or you had, what did you feel? What were your emotions going into that conversation? And what were your goals going into that conversation? BJ, do you mind kicking us off?
I've got a couple examples actually that I could talk about. One was quite recently. I was in the position where one of my consultant colleagues asked me to supervise her to perform a relatively new regional anesthetic block. It's one that's come into practice over the last 5 to 10 years. So many more experienced consultants haven't necessarily been trained on how to do this. So being a newer consultant, I was more familiar with the technique.
Could you just explain what is a regional block? Because some of our
course.
listeners won't know.
Absolutely, sorry. Basically, it's where you have a situation or a part of the body, in this case, the ribs, are causing a lot of pain. So this is a rib fracture case. And what we can do in anesthetics is insert a needle, and through that needle, put down a plastic tube, i.e. a catheter, that sits close to where those nerves come from. And then we put local anesthetic, i.e. numbing medication, down into that space to try and block off the pain signals that get back to the brain. So basically doing a procedure to lay a tube down that's going to cause the patients to be a lot more comfortable. And there's a whole different variety of regional nerve blocks that can be done, some of which are very old and established. Some, as like this one is, are much newer.
Thank you. That's great.
The context is there's this colleague of mine who's definitely my senior. She trained me when I was still in training, asking for my supervision. So there's a bit of role reversal going on here. And in terms of that pre-think chart, my emotions going in are, okay, I was your trainee, you supervised me, now I'm your supervising person. This is awkward and strange. I'm very mindful of where I am. It's a bit of it's just a whole role reversal part coming in. And I don't want to come across like that new, arrogant, I know everything and I'm smarter than my supervisors were type of person. And so that's my emotions going in. I want to try and maintain a very respectful manner, but also my goal here, beyond just let's preserve our professional working relationship, is you want my help to do this block. I want to actually help you to do this block and feel like you can continue doing this independently without always needing supervision. I'm sure you can do this, but I want to make sure I do my best possible job in that.
It sounds like part of what's interesting to me about this workout of the week is often our emotions are sort of restraining or retracting or, putting us a little on the back foot. And our goals are usually comfortable and putting us on the front foot. And how do we align those to then have the conversation? So it seems like a pretty classic mismatch there, which many of us feel going into feedback conversations. I'd love to hear, how did you resolve it or what happened?
In my mind, it was this constant danger warning sign flashing, like don't say the wrong thing. And I was trying to be, I think I was probably on reflection a little hyper vigilant about my tone, about what I was saying. And I was inserting a lot of oh, this is where I've struggled. This is where I've found it difficult. Here's where I've done it wrong in the past. And this is what I've learned since to show, hey, I'm not proclaiming to be the master and the expert of this technique, but I'm also on my own journey to try and, I'm sure there's a really fancy word here I can't come to mind, but almost normalize the struggle or insert myself to insert some humility into the instruction I'm giving and the feedback that I'm giving. In the end, I mean, this my colleague did the block perfectly fine. The patient got really rapid relief and was so grateful that the rib fractures that have been really hurting them were finally not hurting anywhere near as much as they did. So it's success. And I think in terms of the interprofessional relationship, which was where my big concern lay, it was preserved. I think my colleague was very grateful for the help. And I think if the situation arose again where I need this colleague's assistance or they needed my assistance, we would still be able to do that quite freely. So I was quite grateful for that and landing
Hmm.
the way it did.
Yeah, Mel and BJ, I'm just thinking, I'm sure we've both, all three of us have been in situations where I loved how BJ said, I have that red light flashing, like, don't say this like a jerk, don't be a jerk, don't be arrogant, insert humility. And boy, that just seems like a heavy cognitive load when you're having a feedback conversation. So I guess I'm wondering for the three of us, like, what can we learn from BJ's workout of the week? How do we make it easier for ourselves when we have something that's going on one track, which is, act a certain way, and we're also trying to achieve a worthy goal of helping this person do something according to the standard?
I think the pre-think chart really helps, like labeling your emotions going into it. So you have that awareness that that's going on for you. But one thing I've learned, from you, Jenny, and the team is just be really transparent with your thinking and just say it to that person. Like, this is what's going on for me. I know I need to give you this feedback. I know that there's a bit of a power dynamic here, and I don't want to come across as a jerk, but this is really important for the patient. Like, just actually say it.
Yeah, wow. Thanks for reminding me of that. That is an option there. Because I think when we do name it in a way, it does lower the cognitive load, or it gets it out there. BJ,
Mm.
you might have a different take on this. Any kind of lessons for yourself based on this workout of the week?
I really like what Mel just said there. And I'm just thinking what she said, it's so true. I see that so often in the debriefs that I do when I'm feeling that tension, just to say it can really, what's it, they say, name it and tame it. And I didn't think in this instance to use that technique, and I think it would have helped. And I had enough of a working relationship with this individual that I think it would have landed okay and be like, yeah, it is a bit weird, but we're gonna get through it. Cool, let's do it. And it probably would have helped me out considerably, and well, probably both of us out, to be honest. Because I'm sure
Yeah.
there's an element where my colleagues feeling, okay, this is a bit weird. I used to teach this guy, but now he's teaching me. So it would have helped to ease that. I think the other part for me, my reflections looking back at it was this is not the first time I've been in this position. I actually, not that long ago, did the same thing for another colleague of mine doing a very similar block. And this person was even more my senior, I guess I can say. I was probably far more cognitively loaded that first time. Thankfully, it went well. And my colleague then said, hey, I went to another hospital some months later, did the same thing that you showed me, and it worked perfectly. Thanks so much again for teaching me. So it was a nice dovetail to end that. But I think my reflection was, okay, the first time was crazy hard to say. The second time was less intense because I'd done it before. So with experience, it gets easier, I guess is my other reflection. But naming
Yeah.
it, yeah, I think that would be great.
So Mel, I'd love to hear from you. What was the workout of the week thinking about emotions and goals in a feedback conversation like for you?
I have regular feedback conversations, but I guess one in recent history I pulled on because it was quite different. Normally I'm like BJ, right? And you have emotions running hot having these feedback conversations, but this was one where I was really comfortable. I was working with a team where we had worked really hard over a couple of years to develop a really strong feedback culture. And my team would give me feedback and I would give them feedback. It's just what we did. And we had this new team member come in in a leadership position. But I'd received some feedback about some of their behavior and how they were approaching conversations out in the business. So I wanted this person, my goal was I want this person to be successful. And giving feedback is what we do, right, in this team. So let's have a feedback conversation about that. So I was pretty cool, like, that's what we do. And yeah, it didn't go great.
Mm. So you felt pretty chill, your emotions were pretty chill going in. You had a worthy goal of I want this
Yep.
person to be successful, and then it didn't go great. And what are your reflections on the
Mm.
mechanisms of the not going great?
This person had a really strong professional identity. So this feedback, in hindsight, was directly, I guess, influencing their perception and their professional identity. I really underestimated what it would be like for someone new who had never received professional feedback, I found out in their career, to come into a team where feedback is a normal process and how confronting that is. Because it was just something I did every day, I really forgot what it was like at the start,
Mm.
creating that. And so I think it's, when people come into a culture that's pre-established, really being mindful of that. And so that was my massive learning in that not everyone is receptive to feedback. It takes time to get used to feedback and to build that trust and that psychological safety that I've got this person's back.
Mel, I'm finding it really fascinating. When BJ was telling his story, I was thinking about work that Jenny and I do very often, where we talk about drawing the path from being a novice at something to being an expert at it. And BJ had sort of done that in his conversation, where he said, this is where I was when I started it, and this is the mistakes that I made and the path that I took. And then I got to this point where I'm now able to teach you this skill. And that really sort of flattened the power dynamic there in a way, to say, like, hey, this was the path I took to get here. I'm trying to walk you along the same path. And then in your story, I'm seeing this person was a novice in this feedback culture, and you and your team are sort of experts operating at a higher level, and they didn't get that pathway. The path from, like, you're a novice at this now, and we're going to develop you to this expert level that we work at, wasn't presented in that same way. And that's sort of
No,
where
it's like,
where the
boom, you're
mismatch
in.
was. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, James. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I love that insight. The other thing I was thinking, Mel, was when you're an expert at something, you often assume, I'm thinking about downhill skiing for some reason, you're going to be able to handle any terrain that comes your way, but sometimes you're not. Sometimes there's a mogul or there's a tree or there's the snow is denser than you expect or fluffier than you expect, and your usual awesome move does not go well. What are your reflections on what you have learned from this workout of the week?
Honestly, I think it's what I said before with BJ. Like, if I had to do that conversation over again, I just would have pre-briefed the conversation more to say, it's my role to give you feedback. We have a feedback culture. Like, just really have been transparent and really, I think, acknowledged that it's going to have emotional impact, and that's okay, and this is the process. I think I didn't prep the conversation well.
Interesting. Great. All right. Well, that was our exploration of the workout of the week of how do we manage the feedback dilemma of I have a critical insight that might be able to help you, but I don't want to ruin our relationship. And the workout of the week was to start unpacking what's behind that a little bit for our squirmy uncomfortableness by looking at what are our emotions and what are our goals when we go into it. So thank you, BJ. Thank you, Mel.